And, and our interns learned a lot from our program and became better investors and got a lot of wonderful opportunities thanks to Think Sabio. Today, we have an amazing session planned with Neha Bangipurapu to tell us about college admissions. Neha is a senior at Duke. She's majoring in public policy and minoring in psychology and French. At Duke, she's a 2022 Aride Fellow, a 2021 Heart Leadership Program Fellow, and a 2022 Philip R. Costanzo Teaching Fellow. In addition, she conducts research in the Belief Effect and Behavior Lab under Dr. Patty Van Kaplan, and as a Base Connections Fellow studying the 2008 financial crisis. Off campus, she's interned with the Land Justice Organization in Cape Town, South Africa, and she works at the Community Empowerment Fund in Durham, NC, as their housing team coordinator. In her free time, Neha sings with Duke's competitive South Asian a cappella team, Diwana, and she's a concert manager of the Duke Symphony Orchestra. Neha plans on attending law school in the near future, and we're very grateful to have Neha here with us today. So if anybody has any questions during Neha's presentation, please put them in the chat or save them till the end of the session. All the questions will be addressed after Neha's presentation. And Neha, the floor is all yours. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us today.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Neha. I'm a senior undergraduate student at Duke University, which is in Durham, North Carolina. And I'm studying public policy and minoring in French and psychology. So Sayanko asked me to do a question and answer sort of thing for future college applicants. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about myself and my own application process, and also to answer any questions that you might have. I do want to say I'm not a college counselor and don't have any professional experience doing this sort of thing. I am just a current student who has been through the process and had some success in the application cycles. So I'll try my best to answer any questions, but if I don't, I will try to point you in the right direction towards someone who can. So like Kirti said, a little bit about myself. I'm a senior studying public policy on campus. I'm involved with a few different public policy adjacent fellowships. So I'm part of the Arete Fellowship, which is like a nationwide group interested in effective altruism and how to most effectively make an impact.
In this book, right?
I'm also part of the Heart Leadership Program Fellowship at Duke, which basically provided funding for me to do research for my senior thesis, which is on Hindu American politics, actually. I'm a Costanzo Teaching Fellow for the Psychology 101 course at Duke. So I teach college students, usually freshmen, twice a week. And I've done internships both locally and abroad. I was in Cape Town, South Africa this summer, interning at a nonprofit law organization. Research-wise, I work in the Belief, Affect, and Behavior Lab at Duke, which is a psychology lab. I also work on a team of undergraduates, graduate students, and professors to research predatory lending and its impact on the 2008 financial crisis. And in my free time, I play in the Duke Symphony Orchestra, where I'm currently the concert master, and I sing with Duke Diwana, which is our competitive South Asian a cappella team. And now that you know a little bit about myself, I'll try to keep my own talking to a minimum in case you guys have any questions you'd like me to answer, but I'll talk a little bit about my own college application process and then open it.
Oh, Neha, I think you're on mute. There you go.
Hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, what was the last thing I said?
You were talking about singing with Diwana, I believe.
Okay. So yeah, so now that you guys know a little bit about myself, I'll talk a little bit about my own college application process and then open it up to you guys for any questions that you might have. So my own college application process was a little bit weird because in high school, I played violin pretty seriously, was actually considering a career in classical music. That being said, I was also very interested in policy work and law. So I wanted to apply to dual degree programs, where I could get a degree at a normal university, but also get a degree in music at an adjacent conservatory. For those of you that don't know, a conservatory is basically a school just for music or arts, just like Juilliard. So in high school, I was involved with various organizations that were sort of related to the field of social sciences. Like I was in Model UN and I did some writing competitions and I was involved in a couple advocacy clubs. But mostly throughout 9th through 12th grades, I was pretty seriously studying violin. I was involved with 2 different youth symphonies, 3 different chamber groups, which are basically like small ensembles of 3 to 4 people. I did various violin competitions and placed in a couple of them, and I went to competitive summer programs for violin. Obviously now as a public policy major at Duke, I'm no longer working towards a career in classical music, mostly because it's not a very reliable field, unfortunately. But I still think that everything I did that was music related in high school was probably the main reason that I had some sort of success in the college application process. So from what I understand about college admissions, universities are really looking for people who will have a significant positive impact on their campus, who will contribute positively to the growth of their peers, and who are passionate individuals committed to making a difference in the world. So they're not just thinking, oh, is this someone who started X number of clubs on their campus, who raised X funds for Y charity, who volunteered the most number of hours. And I really don't think it's that much of a checklist. It's pretty subjective, for better or for worse. And for me, I think probably what helped me is I think it showed that I clearly had a passion for music and that I wasn't just doing it for the sake of college applications, which I assume probably came through to the admissions committee. So they knew that I wouldn't just drop violin as soon as I got to campus and that I would probably get involved in the music department pretty heavily. And I also think the fact that I was committed to violin throughout high school and invested a lot of time in it probably helped me show that I was a hardworking student and would hopefully succeed in my classes. And also I think because of the collaborative nature of music, I was able to show that I would work well with other Duke students. And obviously as I was applying as a dual degree, I had to show that I was also passionate about politics and law. So I did this by connecting my interests in music and politics through my essays and talking about how music really helped me feel a wide range of emotions, including empathy, which is a very important trait for someone going into the policy field to have. I also obviously talked a lot about my experiences in Model UN and stuff like that. So I'm going to stop talking and open up the floor soon, but I'll just end with this. I think that the biggest piece of advice that I would give high school students is to find something that you're very passionate about and develop it. I'm not sure if you guys have heard the trope from like different college admissions blogs, but I think it's like develop a point, not a line or something like that. Basically, what it's trying to say is that you shouldn't do 100 different things mediocrely just for the sake of college admissions, because I think a lot of committees will see through that. So I would really suggest to find something you like and get really, really good at it. Don't worry too much about test scores. The SAT and ACT are obviously important. At least they were in my time. I don't know about after COVID, but once you get past a certain threshold, they aren't going to care if you have a 1560 or a 1580. Grades are definitely important, but getting an A- or B or a B- is not an end all be all. I would really suggest that you develop your passions, spend time doing the things that you want to do and not the things that you think you should be doing. Because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a bad extracurricular. You don't need to be volunteering 1,000 hours if it's not something that you're genuinely passionate about, just because you think you should. If you're passionate about something like competitive fencing or something like that, then you should do that, because passion is very translatable. And if you have the ability to develop an intrinsic motivation for doing one thing, then you will be able to do that for other things as well. And colleges really want to see that you'll be intrinsically motivated to succeed and make an impact. And then my final piece of advice that I would keep in mind as you embark on this process: college admissions can be extremely, extremely frustrating. I would really suggest try not to let it affect your self-esteem and self-worth. At the end of the day, college admissions is unfortunately just a complete crapshoot, and the decision that a grumpy, uncaffeinated admissions counselor makes at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday really does not define who you are as a person. I know for me, I got into colleges that I thought I had no chance at, and I also got waitlisted and rejected from colleges that I was like, I'm definitely going to get in here. It's just a completely subjective process, and you shouldn't feel discouraged or feel like you didn't work hard enough or anything because of it. I really believe that you'll end up where you need to be. For me, I'm going through the job recruitment process right now, and I've gotten so many rejections in the past from internships and jobs and things like that. And I used to feel really upset every time this happens, but my parents always remind me that my only job is to work hard and put in the effort, and the rest is out of my hands, and things will work out for the better. So like I said before, just do what you need to do to find what you're passionate about, but then trust the process and know you'll end up eventually where you're meant to be. So with that, I'll stop talking. And if you have any questions, just feel free to shout them out or type them in the chat or anything.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can like raise their hand and I can meet you, or you can just put it in the chat. And I think everyone should be able to unmute themselves now. So if you want to. Okay, I guess I'll ask a question. So I know someone once asked about essays. So do you have any advice on writing essays specifically? I think you're muted again. Oh, is it working now? Okay. Okay, I think you should be able to now.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I see a couple questions in the chat. I'll start with the first one. In terms of essays, I mean, like I said before, I think so. One thing that I wish I had done differently in the college process is starting my essays really early. So I applied to a lot of schools, and I think as a result, I had to write a lot of essays. And unfortunately, I saved a lot of those for last minute, which was probably not the best idea. So I definitely recommend start very early, start like in August. And I think in terms of like things to write about, well, it kind of depends on the school. Like you're gonna have like, if you use the Common App, which I think most schools do besides West Coast schools, you're going to be writing like the Common App essay, which like I think the prompts are pretty broad. Personally, what I wrote mine on was how violin expanded my range of emotion to make me be able to feel very empathetic, very like feel like I'm able to relate to others easily, and how that has sort of allowed me to develop a passion for politics because I am able to relate to others, and you kind of need that to like do things like create policy where you're acting on behalf of others. So I think in terms of figuring out what to write about, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Find something that you're really excited about, something that is unique about you, like a story you have, something that you do that really shaped who you are, and write about that. Because I think at the end of the day, colleges want interesting people to be part of their campus community. And if you kind of write about what you think they want to hear, like, oh, like when I was like in high school, I volunteered a lot, and like, you know, that's something that a lot of people will write about. I would really suggest pick something that's authentic, pick something that actually shaped you, and talk about how it's going to impact you and your ability to be a positive aspect of your campus community. And I think it'll come through.
Yeah.
And then, oh, sorry, Kirti, did you want to say something?
So I'm not in college, but I'm a senior, so I'm like looking into the essay process. I would say I've got a lot of similar advice, like look for what you're passionate for. And I know like it doesn't sound easy because it wasn't easy for me either when someone kept coming up to me and being like, "Oh, just like who are you?" I'm like, "I don't know." So it really helps to like brainstorm, just like sit down and like write a list of your extracurriculars maybe, or like what you do, what you spend your time on. And then it also helped me. I like talked it out and then I realized there was one thing I talked about a lot, and that was like making a big impact in my life. So that's what I wrote my main essay on. So yeah, colleges really just want to know who you are as a person, not what your numbers show and stuff. That's what your essays are supposed to do, I think.
Yeah. And then I see a couple other questions. I'll go through those. So, someone asked what stage a kid should start preparing for entering into elite colleges. What kind of prep do I recommend? I mean, I think in terms of preparation, like if you mean like something like the SAT or ACT, like I personally took the SAT when I was, I think I took it right before my sophomore year. So I took it like my freshman summer, which was pretty early. So, I mean, you don't necessarily have to do that. I just did that because I was planning on applying to a certain school that required the SAT. And it was like a boarding high school, which I did not end up going to, by the way. But I think in terms of preparation for SAT, ACT, like I think what helped me the most was honestly just reading a lot. I really love to read and have been an avid reader my whole life. And I think specifically with like the reading comprehension, writing sections, I mean, it is a pretty learnable test, but if you kind of have that base level knowledge of like, oh, like this is generally how grammar rules work in practice, which you basically only get from like reading a lot, I think it's quite helpful. So like as early as possible, just start reading a lot, and specifically like read like academic articles. Like if you have a subscription to like the New York Times, or if you have a subscription to like the Wall Street Journal, I know they can be really boring, but I would definitely recommend just using those. And then if you mean like in terms of preparing for like applications and stuff, I don't really think there's much you can do until like the application process actually starts, like in terms of like writing your essay and stuff. I wrote mine like August of my senior year. So like as student, like my senior year started and that's when I started working on my essays. In terms of like preparation as in like extracurriculars and stuff. I mean, I would say just like in high school, like be as involved as you possibly can in your campus community. Like I said, like find something that you're passionate about, and try to like really develop that one skill. Like for me, it was violin. I was like spending probably close to 20-25 hours a week on violin. So if you do something like that, then I think like developing that skill and showing how passionate you are about it is a very translatable sort of aspect. So they'll be able to see that you are passionate and that you'll make a positive contribution to your campus community. And then someone asked, what do you think about college counselors? Well, I personally did not use one, like a paid one. I did have them at my school. I didn't find them to be super helpful. What I did find to be helpful was talking to people who had already been through the college process. Like I will make myself available to you guys. I'll put my email in the chat and everything. But I just think that, I mean, I can't say anything about paid college counselors because I didn't have one, but I think the college counselors in high schools can be quite overworked, unfortunately, because there's only like 3 for like a class of like 500 kids. They're kind of just there to do like the bare minimum. Unfortunately. So what I would recommend is if you know students who have been through the college process before, then definitely reach out to them, ask them for advice, reading essays, helping like read through your resume, things like that. I can send my email in the chat again if I can be of any help for that. Where can we get list of scholarships available to be applied? Well, I applied to a couple like scholarships. What I would recommend with scholarships is like if you're applying to like a top 10 college, it's going to be pretty hard to get like a merit scholarship. They obviously award them, but like you're kind of competing with like very, very, very bright, like involved students. And like it's a little like I think difficult for obviously them to be able to give everyone a merit scholarship. So what I would recommend with scholarships is like there's a lot of like smaller organizations that do like scholarships of like, like this person will give you $2,000, this person will give you $5,000. And once you kind of put them all together, they add up and they obviously make a difference. So like personally, my mom works at SAS. So I applied to like the SAS Scholars Program, and that's how I got some financial aid for college. There's other foundations as well, like Coca-Cola does one, like the Coke Scholars. I think there's others too, but I'm sure if you look up like scholarships available for college students, like you would find one.
If you search it up, you'll get a bunch. They have scholarships for literally everything. So just like if you research about it, it should help. And same thing with like college counselors. I think they help you at like the ground level, but if you really want to get stuff, you're gonna have to kind of do the research on your own, or like reach out to people in the college process, like Neha said. So you're probably gonna have to put in some time to research about it. So I think just that would help. And
Yeah.
then I think someone asked, do we have to prepare a different essay for each college, or is one essay?
So yeah, good question. You do. So basically how college admissions works is, at least for schools on the East Coast, and like I think also Midwest, but you basically have something called the Common App, and it has like a big essay that's I think like 450, 500 words or something like that. And then each school that you apply to will have like 2 to 3 different like smaller essays that you have to write. So like I said earlier, that's like a lot of essays. Like I ended up applying to like I think like 10, 15 schools because I was doing like the dual degree application. So I was writing like a lot of essays. So I would recommend starting early with those. And also the good thing about these sorts of essays is like a lot of schools will ask pretty similar questions. So you can sort of tailor each like essay to and like slightly tweak it to address each different prompt. Another tip for these sorts of essays, like if you're writing specific essays for like colleges, they're called like supplements. When you do write a supplement for a college, I would definitely recommend including information about how that specific college is going to help you in your goals to do like X, Y, and Z. So like if for example, like you're applying to Duke, you should talk about why Duke specifically will help you achieve your goals rather than other schools. Like what is so special about Duke? So like for me, I talked about like something called Duke Engage, which I did take part in actually last summer. I talked about how like the music community at Duke is super inclusive and very vibrant. So definitely like doing research, talking about why that specific school will help you is really important, I think, in writing supplements. And then someone asked, how does extracurricular activities like swim team and taekwondo help? I think
Scouts is like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
yeah. I mean, I think like yeah, like you should definitely be doing stuff outside of like your school work. Like I said earlier, I would definitely recommend like like don't, I think, do it just so that you get into like college. Like don't do it for the sake of the application, because I think that will definitely come through. Like there are going to be a lot of applicants to colleges that are going to have like 100 different things on their resume, but like when you really look at it, like they're not really engaging too much with what they're doing. Like it's kind of just like surface level engagement with each one. But students who do stand out, I think probably are those who go really deep into one skill. So like I would suggest like if you're interested in taekwondo, like I don't know, getting to the highest level possible with taekwondo. I don't exactly know what that is. And then like maybe like, starting like a way to like help students who don't have access to taekwondo education, like figuring out a way to disseminate that information, just like going really deep into it, developing that passion will, I think, be really helpful in setting you up for a good college career.
Yeah, so I did taekwondo, and I think the way I showed my passion for it, since that's like really important, I Well, I did get the black belt, but then after that, like I went to competitions too. And I think that shows like your commitment towards it. So maybe like delving a little deeper than just like attending the classes. And then
Yeah,
you want to ask sample essays.
sample essays. I think if you like look up sample, I mean, I think I remember when I was in applying to college, I was looking up like a lot of essays for specific schools that I was interested in. So if you look up like, say like you're interested in going to like, I don't know, UNC, if you look up like UNC supplement essay, I'm sure you could find something like that. I know I was interested in applying to like certain schools that had like there was like literally like a packet of like sample essays from a certain school that I was interested in. So if you look it up, I'm sure you could find it. If you're looking up like if you're more interested in like Common App essays, those are like very plentiful online. Like there's some like really famous Common App essays actually. Like I can share mine if also that would be helpful. You can just email me and let me know and I can send that to you. But I think if you look up like sample essays, they'll be online.
Yeah, I did college essay guy on Google. He has a lot of sample essays if you guys want to check that out.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any more questions. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah. Send mine.
Cool. Okay.
So,
So, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, Neha, thank you for doing this. This is awesome. You know, the way you're sharing your personal experience is amazing. So I
Sure.
have a quick question. So, why did you choose Duke? What was your other priorities when you applied, right? So you might have some dream colleges, right? So what
Yeah.
was the reason and why Duke? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, again, I think mine was a little bit weird because I was applying to dual degree programs and I ended up not going to one. So like the other programs that I was interested in were Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, and so they specifically like those because they had like the tie to the conservatory aspect. Duke actually did not. Duke is it doesn't actually have like a bachelor's of music program. But I think I chose Duke because I'm from Cary, North Carolina, and I went to like Duke for their pre-college program. Like it's like a string school, like a music school sort of thing for high school students. So because of that, I was able to get connected to a lot of professors at Duke already, specifically in the music department, which actually like on a side note, I would definitely recommend like if you do know like what you're interested in as a field of study, which if you're 17 and you know what you're interested in, like great, that's amazing because I definitely did not. So but if you do, I would recommend seeing if you can go to like a school's website and like go on their go to that specific department and see if you can find like any faculty you could reach out to and like talk to them about like what the department is like what the like program is like as well. And I think in that way you sort of get a sense for whether the school is right for you, or not even just a school, like the specific program that you're interested in studying is right for you. Also, you sort of get that connection with like a faculty member, which could be useful for recommendations. I know for me, like I was very connected to the professors at Duke, Northwestern, and Johns Hopkins, so I was able to like kind of use that connection to my advantage when I was going through the process. Anyways, so in terms of why I chose Duke, I went to Duke for pre-college and loved it. Like I absolutely loved my Duke pre-college experience. And I knew a lot of the professors here already in the music department. And like Duke has a very, very prominent public policy school, which is like my major and what I'm interested in going into in the future. So Sanford School of Public Policy has a lot of specific, like has a lot of connections in things like law, and like if you're interested in like management consulting, things like that, they'll set you up really well for something like that. So, and Northwestern and Johns Hopkins didn't necessarily have those same like levels of prominence with the field that I was interested in. So that's why I chose Duke.
Awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And then someone asked tuition and dorm expenses at Duke. Well, unfortunately, Duke and like a lot of the other like top 10 schools are like around, I think, the same level, and they're quite expensive. Like if you look it up, I think like 80K for tuition and expenses, which is like ridiculous. And unfortunately, because of COVID, it's been increasing as well. So yeah, I think, but the good news is I think Duke does give financial aid to like over half their like student population. One thing I will say about Duke is it's a very, like the population here is unfortunately like a very, it comes from a very wealthy subset of America, which is very noticeable in the student culture and the student body. And I think that's something you should potentially take into account with any school you're applying to, because it can get quite expensive. And like in terms of, especially if you're applying like early decision to a school, like if you don't necessarily know how you're going to be able to finance that education, then I wouldn't recommend applying early decision. Like definitely take into account like the financial factors before you know which cycle to apply to.
Yeah, and there's one more question. So, do colleges consider your middle school or high school and what you do in those schools, like if you're running a club or
Yeah, I don't really think they consider middle school at all. I mean, I think they do consider what high school you go to, like in terms of like, if it's like a well-known high school, then probably. So what probably maybe played a little bit of a factor for me was I went to a Raleigh charter, which is in Raleigh, North Carolina. And obviously Duke is in Durham, which is like 10 minutes, 20 minutes away from each other. So people on like the Duke admissions committee probably know Raleigh Charter as a school because it is like a well-ranked school in North Carolina. And it's so close by that a lot of students from Raleigh Charter do apply to Duke. So I think in terms of that, like it probably helps in that they consider like the level of rigor that a high school like probably has a reputation for. Like I know from my school, Raleigh Charter is really well known for its like academics in North Carolina. So I think probably a little bit it plays a role. But again, I'm not 100% sure about that. That's just what I've heard.
From my side, I think they consider more of like what you're doing than like what school you go to. But I do know that to make it like equal for everyone and like an equal playing field, they kind of because there's like GPAs that factor into that, and they kind of like take them all on an even scale because every school and every district, every state does it differently. So I guess not too much of this brand, but more of like, yeah, what you're doing there does matter. Like if you're class president or treasurer running multiple clubs, that shows your leadership, and that's another extracurricular. So yeah.
Yeah, and I will say like I think what matters more than the high school you went to is the like course you took there. Like if you're at like a really like, you know, like underfunded high school, for example, but you're taking like AP classes and like, you know, taking like a level of academic rigor, I think that also probably contributes. Like if you're, I know some students will take like all AP classes like 1 year, like, you know, some people won't. And I think that level of rigor that you take with your academic coursework probably plays some factor.
Yeah. And for middle school, I don't think they like really pay attention to what you do there or your grades in middle school, but it can just help you as an individual like learn and grow to like for high school, I guess. And then there's one more question. So can a family with decent income get 50% aid, or is it more 25%? And then what's like the average aid that people of Indian families got?
I'm not 100% sure about that. I actually, I mean, we don't have access to like financial aid statistics, unfortunately. Like that's pretty much, I think, confidential. I can say for me, like, I don't think like I'm not exactly sure, like, I guess what decent income signifies, but I would say for me, like, I got work study financial aid, which is like basically it's an agreement between like the school and the student that the student will work for some part of their tuition. So I personally work in the music library, or I worked in the music library. Now I just work in the regular library, like as a student circulation assistant. So like in that way, like you can get a couple thousand in financial aid. Any advice which colleges to choose for business information systems? I mean, those are not my areas of interest personally. By information systems, do you mean like computer science or data science or something like that? Because if it's computer science, I think my roommate actually is a computer science major here, and I think she's doing pretty well. So Duke. And then also, I think like probably Cornell, I think is one of like the more sciencey of the top colleges. MIT definitely. I mean, I think like with kind of like the top 10 schools, you can't really go wrong with any of them. They'll probably have like whatever a great version of whatever field you're interested in studying.
Yeah, for computer science, there's also Caltech, Georgia Tech, and Carnegie Mellon.
Oh yeah, Carnegie Mellon's a good one. And business, I mean, well, Duke's economics department is very, very well reputed. And it sends students to really, really great like management consulting firms, things like that. So Duke is always great for like economics and business and things like that. We have like economics with like finance concentration and things that, so that would be helpful if you do want to go into like business or business school or something like that.
Asking like the significance of AP classes versus IB, and then does the IB program like change anything? Like, does it help you? Or
So I went to a school that only did AP. And I think most schools probably in this area do AP. I don't really know what the difference is between AP and IB. Personally, for me, I took a lot of AP courses, especially I took like AP biology, government, AP like US history. Again, like I'm more interested in like the social sciences. So I was like taking like primarily history courses in the APs. So I don't really know that it makes a difference. I have a friend who's an international student from India, and he did the IB program, and I mean, he's here as well. So I think it doesn't really make a difference either way. And then in-state or out-of-state colleges, I mean, it kind of depends on the state. Like for North Carolina, we have really, really, really great colleges here. Like Duke is here, UNC, NC State, UNC, like the system, like Charlotte, Greensboro, they're all really, really great schools. So, I mean, if you are able to live in an area that has that sort of thing, then like it's probably financially cheaper to go to an in-state school. Again, like in-state public college, like I'm in-state in North Carolina, and Duke is here, and it makes no difference. I still have to pay the same, so unfortunately. But I think in-state versus out-of-state, like it really makes a difference in terms of like tuition. Like if you're going to an in-state public college, it'll be cheaper for you than it would be for someone who was out of state. And then a college prep class, do you mean like an SAT prep class or something like that?
I'm guessing college admissions. No.
Oh, like college admissions, like counseling?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it. I haven't heard like amazing things about it because my parents did like offer to get me one if I wanted, but I chose not to because I felt like I had enough support within my specific school just because my school was smaller. So we did have better college counselors than most people. But I don't think that they're necessary. I think I would definitely recommend, just instead of paying for it, just asking people who have been through the process already to like look over your essays and things like that. I don't think it's necessarily something that's like, it's not like a formula or anything that you have to crack to like be able to get into these schools. I think just having as many eyes on your essays and your applications as possible is probably way more helpful than just paying one specific person to do it. And then does ED give you an advantage during college admissions? I think so. I think it does give you a slight advantage. For Duke, I think like, I don't remember the exact statistics, but I think like something like 15% were admitted ED, and then like 7 to 8% were admitted regular decision.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like guarantee your admission, but it
Yeah.
definitely gives you an edge because it shows that you're dedicated to that school.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, I would say like if you know 100% that this is your top school, you know you're going to be able to afford it, you know this is where you want to be, then like yeah, ED might be something you would consider. I did not apply ED to Duke. I didn't apply ED to any school just because I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go. And then how many APs do you recommend taking? I don't think there's like a specific number that you need to take. Like I just I took like I think 3 my sophomore year, 4 my junior year, and like 5 my senior year or something like that. Again, that's just to give you an idea, but I don't think that there's a specific number. I think what matters most is like if you're going to take a class, like an AP version of a class, like are you sure you're going to be able to do well in it? And are you sure that it's like, it sucks that this is something you have to consider, but are you sure that this is not going to be something that hurts your GPA? Like, it's better to take an honors version of a class and get an A in it rather than an AP version and get like a D. But I think that, yeah, I think like there's no specific number. And also I would recommend like if you're particularly interested in a certain field and you're trying to show that you're particularly interested in a certain field, then yeah, take more APs in that field. But if you're not interested in like, for example, like if you're not interested in policy or public policy or something like that, then there's not really any need to take like AP government. Like my sister is not taking AP government right now because she's more interested in science and like the STEM fields. And there's not really any need for her to take it because she's, you know, it's just going to be more work and she can use that energy to put into something she actually wants to do.
I think APs are more for like to show that you're challenging yourself. That's what they see in that. So it's not like you have to take this many or you have to take this many. Just like show that you like are trying basically. And then so since you're a minor in psych, any advice or suggestions for psychology majors to do well in their bachelor's?
Yeah, okay. So I am a psychology minor, and I have loved the psych program at Duke. I'm a psychology like teaching fellow right now, so I actually like teach a couple like sections of a course in psychology as well. So it's really great. I think psychology is interesting because it has the reputation of being like an easier major or minor, which like to be real, I think it is the case. Like psych classes are generally pretty, I mean, if you're going to put in the work, then you're going to do well, I think. So I wouldn't worry if like you're worried about like the academic rigor of psychology. I will say psychology is like an extremely interesting field and like something that I love to study because it's very applicable to every aspect of my life. Like in the psych course I'm teaching right now, like we're learning about memory and how false memories and the misinformation effect can affect like police testimony, which is just like such a cool concept and such a cool like way to apply things you're learning to your own life. So I would definitely like if you're interested in psychology, like please reach out. I can tell you about like Duke psychology program and things like that. But in terms of like doing well in it, I wouldn't worry too much. If you like put in the effort, are able to like have a good scientific mindset of like, you know, like open skepticism, then I think you'll do well. Yeah, I think
One more. So do school counselors help more than private college counselors? Or are they helpful?
again, I didn't have a private college counselor, so I can't really speak to that. I think school counselors for me were helpful because I went to a really small high school. I went to like a school of like 400 students. So they were really helpful for me because they only had like 20 students they were supposed to be helping. But I can understand how if you're a student in a school of like 1,000 people, then you're not going to necessarily get the help that you need. So in that case, maybe private counselor would be something worth looking into. But again, I think I'm going to still recommend, like, before you like consider that as an option, I would say definitely just try to use your resources that you do have available. Like, you can reach out to current students or like senior students in your high school, reach out to people who are in the colleges that you are applying to. I can, again, like, I'll send my information and you can ask any questions that you might have after the session as well.
Yeah, and for me, like our class is around 565 students, so our school counselor really doesn't know who we are, and they're not as helpful, I would say. So I guess it depends on your connection with the counselor or your school. And I think that's all the questions. Does anybody have any more? Oh, okay. Do you know of any summer psych programs at Duke?
Summer psych programs for high schoolers, I don't know. Well, what you can do is I don't know of any like specific like formal programs, but sometimes you can apply to like research programs at Duke. I can't remember. I know I had a couple friends in high school who worked in them, but oh, for college sophomores. I mean, I think if the student goes to Duke, then there's, yeah, definitely a couple programs that I could recommend to you. But I'm not sure for like other college sophomores. I don't think we have any. But for high schoolers, like, something that I would recommend is if you are interested in a particular college and are interested in like the STEM field or like the social sciences field, like psychology, you can reach out to like professors who will often have labs through the department. So like, for example, I work at the Belief, Affect, and Behavior Lab, and you could reach out to like the professor or the PhD that leads the lab and ask if they have any research opportunities. I'm not certain that they would have any for high school students, but I know a couple people who have worked in like labs. Sorry, could you clarify that question? Just like in terms of like ideas for internships or like ideas if internships help?
I think it's more if internships help, but
Okay. I I would assume so. Yeah, I think having an internship would probably like be a good way to show that you have some professional experience and are able to meet deadlines and are able to communicate clearly with like supervisors and things like that, which is like eventually something you're going to want to develop in college anyways. So like it's a good way to show you kind of have a head start on that.
yeah, I had an internship in high school and it definitely helped because it was just like letting me grow and learn the skills, but also like I could show not only colleges, but like anyone who sees my resume that I have those skills. And also if you do it in your field and like keep doing it in stuff that you're interested in, it just continues to show your passion. And then okay, I guess online internships versus
Yeah. Kirti, maybe you could speak to this just because I didn't have like an internship when I was in high school. I was like, again, I was mainly focused on like social science, like politics, advocacy, club sort of things. And also like I was mostly involved in violence stuff. So maybe Kirti, since you have an internship at Think Savvy, you could speak on this.
I don't know if it really like if they really say like, oh, are you in person or are you online? My internship is it's at Think Savio, and like I told you guys, like we created course curriculums and we just spread our outreach basically to show like spread our passion of like investing and computing too, because I'm more into computer science. So like I got to code and help the development team. So that just like showed my passion for it. Mine was completely online just because like our teams not in the same state, so like it isn't really possible to meet, but I don't think that hindered my performance or anything. It actually helped me meet like so many people because I could meet like literally with anyone. um and for UT Austin, I went there for a couple of weeks. That was like a camp. I don't know, it's not really an internship, but more of like a program that helped me with getting familiar with the college, but that was in person and I didn't see like a difference between going in person or online. I think it's just um like you're not physically there, but colleges aren't going to see that. Like they're not going to be like, "Oh, is it online or in person?" So it's mostly to just show like your passion, I believe. But going in person, the only difference is like you meet and you make connections, but going online, you still do that. I guess it depends where your internship is, to be honest. Because for me, it ran online, so there was no problem with connecting with people. I made a lot of connections, but yeah, if it's at like a college or something, that might be a little uncomfortable going online because going in person helps you like connect with professors like Neha. But yeah, I think that's what I have for internships.
Yeah. And like for what it's worth, like in terms of college, like working at like a lab at a university, like I mean, my lab was almost entirely virtual last year. I didn't go in person and like the work would still be able to be done because it was like all like coding in R and things like that, which you didn't necessarily have to be in person for. So I would say like, yeah, like I think it kind of depends on the work you're doing. Like if you're going to be doing like participant research, then yeah, that you'd have to be in person for that. But I think you could kind of like reach out to different labs based on what your interests are and just see what opportunities they have available.
I think it's more about the outcome, not like the process. Like they're not going to be like, "How'd you do it?" Like if it's online or in person. So. And then one more, what kind of coding oh, me.
Thanks for you.
So I got to code a little bit for it really depends where you do your internship. Every place will have different opportunities, but like personally for me, I did a little bit about like we wanted to automate Twitter posts for our company. So I coded a little bit on the automation of that, if that answers the question. But I mean, every company is going to give you different opportunities. So yeah. Any other questions on like either Think Savio's internship or like colleges?
I have a question. So I always hear college students are very stressed, how do you deal with it? I mean, how do you manage it? Because I think academics is one part, but more than that, the time management, the responsibilities and the prioritization that comes, right? So first health is important too. So
Yeah.
how do you manage the stress level? So I really wanted
Yeah.
to hear.
Good question. Very, very applicable question right now. I'm like, this is probably my busiest semester yet because I'm like the teaching fellowship takes up a lot of my time, as well as I'm writing a senior thesis, which is like doing my own research on a certain topic and like writing like a paper that's going to be published basically in like through Duke for that. And I'm also applying to jobs and studying for the LSAT. So all that is to say, it's like, oh, I have a lot going on right now. And I think a lot of my friends who are also seniors also have a lot going on. Like, and I think it's so, so important to be intentional about like taking time out of your day for yourself. So like for me personally, I'll like wake up and I usually will do like 5 minutes of like meditation or something like that, just to like make sure that I'm like starting my day off on the right foot. And then at the end of the day, like I will never go to bed like having just worked and then like immediately like shutting my laptop and going to sleep. Like I'll always take some time to like decompress. Like I'll read a book or like watch an episode of like a show or something like that. So I think it's very important to like, as much as you treat the things on your to-do list like things like your homework and stuff like that, you also should treat like self-care and like making time for yourself as one of those to-do items. And also like I should follow this advice myself. So like I'm I'm guilty of this, but I think especially students who are like going to schools like who the like top colleges, like like Harvard and Yale and whatever, like obviously they're going to be very motivated and very much wanting to like, you know, make an impact on the world. And I think that can result in them taking on too much. And I think just kind of being aware of what your limitations are, and being aware of the time you have, like everyone only has 24 hours. So just not biting off more than you can chew, because that can obviously come back to bite you very quickly, where like you kind of put in less effort with everything and don't get the results you wanted.
Yeah, I
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
think extracurriculars can also help you decompress a little. Like I love to dance, so if I'm like stressed out, sometimes just expressing myself that way and like taking a few minutes to like listen to music and like just dance or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
like I put in the orchestra here, which is like very helpful for me, because it's like 4 hours at the every week where I'm like forced to just like be present and play music. I also sing in like the a cappella group, so that's also like a really fun social activity. So just like being intentional about finding ways to like have fun
right.
here. And also like college at the end of the day is like supposedly the best 4 years of your life. So you want to make the most of it in more than just like in academic ways. Like you want to also have fun and things like that. So like making sure that you're doing that as well, I think is really important.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't, but I just want to take a minute to thank both of you, Neha and Kirti, for putting this together. I really
Sure.
appreciate your time and your valuable information. Hopefully we can take something back home, and maybe the kids can actually utilize this information and try to see where they're going. And it's like a motivation for others to help their peers, their friends, their cousins, right? To help them go in taking a right path. So thank you so much, guys.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And then I think there is actually one more question. So how are the social connections or networking at Duke?
Do you mean like social connections as in like social life, like fun aspect of Duke, or like do you mean like networking as in like job networking? Um, I can also speak to both. Um, I I guess in terms of like the social life, it's it's really it's definitely like more heavy on like the fraternities, sororities kind of thing, which is I would say a downside, because if you're not in one, then it can feel a little bit exclusive. But I think, I mean, I found a really good group of people at Duke. All my friends are actually Indian, so and I'm very involved in like the Indian community at Duke. So yeah, I think it's great if you find the right community. And then job networking, it's like amazing. Like I think the fact that I go to Duke is what helps me like reach out to like random people on LinkedIn and ask them like can you help me get a job basically. Like I think having the like name of Duke will sort of open some doors in terms of like getting like job opportunities. I know like especially if you're interested in something like management consulting, like Bain and BCG and McKinsey, they'll all recruit very, very heavily from Duke. So it definitely helps. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, I did record this meeting, so I'll send it out. Guys. Okay, yeah, there's more. So is it okay if majority of my extracurriculars are focused on the activist and wellness, mental health aspect, but I want to major in comp sci?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, it's whatever you're interested in. Like, I mean, they're extracurriculars for a reason. Like, they're not supposed to be part of your like school curriculum. And I think what would probably be even more helpful is like finding ways to tie your interest in computer science to your experiences working in the mental health sector. So like, you know, saying something like, oh, like I was able to code this like or I'm very bad at like the whole tech speak unfortunately, but like I was able to like I don't know, make like a design like a digital platform for like people to reach out to like friends when they're having like a mental health crisis or something like that. Like so doing something that sort of ties those interests together would probably be something that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it's fine if like they're focused on other things, but like try to include what you're majoring in a little bit too. So it's not like completely random.
Mhm.
And then do volunteering activities help you get into good universities?
I mean, yes, short answer, but also like not if you're, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference if you're just like doing volunteering for the sake of it. Like if you're just like volunteering at a bunch of different like random events, then like it's like it's definitely like great and a great way to impact your community. But I think like there's probably more meaningful ways that you can get involved. Like, for example, one way that I volunteer at Duke is I work at an organization called the Community Empowerment Fund, where basically we work with people who are like homeless or experiencing financial insecurity directly to connect them to resources that can get them help. So like that I think is a very like something like that would be like a potential way to volunteer while you're like building like long lasting connections with members of the community, and also like you can kind of see the tangible impact that you have on their life. But I think like in terms of like just kind of volunteering like X amount of hours, I think that generally like a lot of students will have something like that. So I don't think it's going to be something that necessarily sets you apart. So maybe just try to be like super like meaningful with what you're doing.
Yeah, for me, I think how I made my volunteering kind of helpful is, well, I did do some that's like for my major, so like helping in that way. But also, there is like this President Service Award, where if you do like an X amount of, there's some exceptions, but it's like based on your age, if you do a certain amount of hours, the base some organizations are recognized by the government, so they'll provide an award for you. So that just shows like how you are making an impact since those organizations were recognized. But like yeah, like Neha said, don't just like just volunteer for the sake of it. For sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah, and then she just followed up like, what about at a
uh, I mean, I think like I'm not exactly sure what the specifics of like volunteering at a library are. I work at a library. I think it's super fun. But I think maybe like if there's a way that you can, if you're gonna talk about it in your college application, like if there's a way you can say like my work at the library specifically helped me make this impact on this person, like being really specific, like being not just saying like, you know, like I worked for 100 hours at my local library. Like if you're able to kind of tie in that sort of impact that you've had, it shows that not only that you've actually had an impact and you're not just like saying that you have, but also that like you're being intentional about the sort of work that you're doing, and that you're being intentional about how your work actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been about 1 hour, so I think we'll stop after this question, but there's one more. So, how is the college admission process and how do you recommend getting prepared for it?
Um, I I mean, for me, the college application process was quite stressful, to be honest. Although I think one thing that did help me was the fact that I did have connections with professors at different universities, which I think probably gave me an edge, because they were able to like write me recommendations and things like that. But I think it's can be really stressful, and I think it can also be discouraging because, like I said before, like you can, it's like completely just subjective. Like you can get into colleges that you had no idea you were going to, and you can get rejected and waitlisted from colleges that you like were like, oh yeah, this is my safety school. But I think just being mindful of that and making sure that you're like not tying your college outcome to your like self-worth. Like you can get a good education and you can succeed anywhere. Like I promise, if you're going to college, you're probably going to end up in a good place. Like I don't think it really makes that much of a difference where you go because the opportunities are kind of going to be the same anywhere. Obviously there is some edge that having like a certain name can get you in like job recruiting, but I think at the end of the day, especially if you're interested in a field like computer science, where, I mean, not right now, but like usually there's a lot of jobs in computer science, I think. But I think you're gonna be fine wherever you go. And then getting prepared for it, just like starting your essays early, that would be the main thing I would say. Like just start August, like as soon as your senior year starts, even like the summer, start thinking about what you want to write about, how you want to, and just making sure that your application sort of has like a cohesive narrative to it. So like, it's not just kind of like all over the place. Like I did this, I did this, I did this. Like, how did everything you did in high school tie into where you want to go in 4 years? And how will going to this school help you get there?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Neha, for giving us that insight into your personal experiences. I learned a lot and like took away some points, so I'm sure everybody else did as well. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I feel
Um,
confident in the application process. I hope a lot of people do. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining our session today. I know it is a Sunday, so thank you guys for taking your time to do that. If you have any questions, we did put our email in the chat, so you can reach out to us and we would love to respond. But that's pretty much all I have for today. So have a great evening, everyone. Thank you for joining.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.